Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and it's more of the same from pretty much any of the, now 23 candidates for the Democratic nomination next year when it comes to abortion. Anything and everything is racist or sexist or is theocracy in motion. They have no actual argument to stand on. Now, Kirsten Gillibrand is actually accusing Christians of being anti-Christians, being bad Christians if you're pro-life. There's a very simple truth to the abortion argument. It was ultimately begun by Margaret Sanger, and at its very core is racist. Margaret Sanger wanted to eliminate minority populations and saw the best way to do it to eliminate their pregnancies. You see, she wasn't saying, oh, it's just a clump of cells, this is just a choice. No, she literally wanted to end minority populations by not letting them reproduce. We have Roe v. Wade, and now Roe, it's not her real name, but the woman who ultimately was forced or lied to and tricked into bringing the case has become a staunch pro-lifer. We have states now signing and enacting laws that restrict abortion once a fetal heartbeat has been detected and so on. And of course, as always, liberals are going to sue and sue and sue and challenge everything they can. They're going to take it to the Ninth Circus. It will go towards the liberals and ultimately go to Supreme Court. Of course, we have people demanding that Gorsuch and Kavanaugh not rule against Roe v. Wade, or they'll be found in contempt. They will have perjured themselves when that's not the case. But if we want to look at Gillibrand here, we need only to look at what her words are. She is lagging in the polls, of course, which she can't stand. None of them can. But she actually said, if you are a person of the Christian faith, one of the tenets of our faith is free will. One of the tenets of our democracy is that we have separation of church and state, and under no circumstances are we supposed to be imposing our faith on other people. And I think this is an example of that effort. Well, Senator Gillibrand, let me educate you. First of all, the words separation of church and state appear nowhere in our founding documents. The First Amendment begins, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. It goes on to also say that we have free speech, free press, freedom to petition for redress of grievances, and to peaceably assemble. But she goes on to say that we have it. Well, church and state, the famous build a wall of separation line, was in a letter to the Danbury Baptists. In actuality, it was warning the Danbury Baptists to build that wall to protect the church from the state. But, of course, to liberals, the fact that anyone said wall of separation means that no one may exercise their faith when they become a government official, unless, of course, that is the Muslim faith, where Omar and Talib are calling for anything and everything short of just shutter the entire country and hand us power. And it's insane, honestly it is. When we look at here, that the Democrat said, of course, this is if she's elected, she would only tap judges who support the decision in Roe v. Wade to sit on the Supreme Court. Gillibrand was a vocal critic of now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was confirmed to the bench in October, generally over concerns about abortion. Well, it's very simple, Senator. Just as it is not a crime in any way for a law to be overturned, it's not a crime for a constitutional amendment to be repealed, nor is it a crime in any way, shape, form, or fashion for court precedent to be overturned. We would be living in a much different country if precedent was, okay, it's set in stone and it can never be changed. Because precedent prior to the Civil War was that African Americans were slaves. And precedent prior to the early 19th century, early 20th century, was that only U.S. citizens who were men could vote. You see, it took constitutional amendments to overturn those precedents. And that is the whole point of the judiciary, is they examine laws, and they examine them all the time. And challenges are brought to challenge precedent, to challenge whether or not a ruling should stay as it is. But Democrats don't care about precedent. They don't care about tradition. They don't care about anything other than power. You see, abortion gives them power because they get to go to low-income areas where students, by law, are not taught that abstinence actually works. But of course, abstinence is now apparently only a Christian thing, not a I don't want to have a baby, so if I don't have sex, I won't have a baby. Although, ironically, right now, liberals are actually calling for abstinence because, well, if I can't have an abortion, I just won't get pregnant. Well, amazingly, that logic is what you demanded not be taught in schools at all. Notice they always go for we do not want abstinence only education. Well, none of the programs were abstinence only. They taught condoms and other methods of birth control, and they taught many other things. They taught about sexually transmitted diseases and other things like that. And they were ordered by law to not tell people that if you don't have sex, you don't get pregnant unless by choice, maybe through IVF. If you don't have sex, you don't get STDs because it would take a blood transfusion to get that. They're prevented from it because Democrats have deemed that morality is apparently a wholly Christian thing. And so is logic, apparently, until an abortion ban is passed into law and liberals decide, well, abstinence is the only way, and they prove the point they hate is correct. It's very simple, and it applies really to anything and everything that you can dream of. Alabama, Georgia, these other states are electing people to do the will of the voters. The voters have made it very clear that they support these new laws. Their representatives voted to pass those bills. Their governors signed them. And liberals cannot stand that states they don't even live in will, well, very simply, they can't stand that they're not obeyed. I did find it funny when I saw on Twitter that Jason Bateman has said he will never work in the state of Georgia while this ban is in place. One of the responses was, who? You see, Bateman, Milano, and the rest, they're clinging to their waning relevancy. Milano's not done anything of note since Charmed, and even then it wasn't of much note. Bateman hasn't done much in the last 20 years other than sporadic appearances in movies that barely made any money, or car commercials where he's an elevator operator during the Super Bowl. And even those movies that made money is because of the other people. The only one I can actually remember in the last 15 years is basically the twist on Freaky Friday where he and Ryan Reynolds switched bodies. But it's because of Ryan Reynolds and Olivia Wilde and the other actors that movie did well, because Bateman, honestly, he's not that good. I did just remember one other, Hancock, and guess what? Will Smith carried that movie, as did Theron. Bateman is not relevant, and he can't stand it, even though he's a multimillionaire, or should be if he played his cards right and invested. He can't stand that people aren't bowing to him, just as Milano can't stand it. And we're going to get more of this insanity until we finally have judges on the bench in the Ninth Circus and everywhere else that very plainly say, was the law passed according to the Alabama Constitution? Yes. Were the people who passed it legally elected? Yes. Well, then that law is legal because it followed the process of passing a law. And of course, even if the Supreme Court says, no, sorry, nothing illegal about Alabama passing a law, because that's always been the tenet. You cannot be less strict than federal law. You can be more strict, because if that wasn't the case, Colorado's so-called universal background checks could be challenged, because federal law doesn't require them. Therefore, why should Colorado be allowed to? But see, that's in regards to firearms, which liberals hate unless they're carried by the paid security that said liberal hires to keep the riffraff away. They allow more strict than federal law there, but they don't allow it on things they hate. The only thing is, you cannot allow people to break federal law, but you can be more strict than federal law, and that is legal. As long as it is done with the will of the voter, there should be no question. But again, liberals are being ignored. They can't stand this. And they're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until finally one of them is arrested for attacking a judge who says, I'm sorry, you're not a Georgia resident, therefore you have no say in what Georgia does. And that person will screech like a rabid animal and try to attack people, and they'll end up in jail, and all over mainstream media will be Hollywood actor arrested for defending choice, and they'll ignore that they tried to hurt people. But I've talked about it long enough. Let me know what you think in the comments. Just remember, as always, keep it civil. We don't learn from argument, we learn from debate. Also, please remember to like and share this video, as well as to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you are among the first to know of all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.